Ooh, ooh. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to the May Painting Challenge Day 10. So, for Day 10, I'm actually done with the principal portion of Forgotten King Super Dungeon Explorer, the stuff that I had pledged to do for the challenge. So, we are on to stretch goals at this point. So, tonight, I figured, since I did a paint day yesterday at my LGS, and I might have a few new viewers tonight, or some folks that are going to check out the channel based on our word of mouth yesterday. I figured I would take them through the process, start to finish here, on a miniature. So tonight we're working on this miniature. This is a Takawashi University miniature. Let's see if I can find the card for her. Or not. I don't know where the card went. Oh wait, here it is. Okay, so here's the suggested artwork, and I really kind of like this artwork because I wanted to do red hair, but I'm probably going to do green eyes in this kimono. It's really cool. I may actually do something very similar with the kimono. So anyway, here's the miniature. This is for you folks that are brand new to miniature painting. So the miniature comes like this. There's a metal tab on it, and it comes with one of these blank bases. So it comes with a base like this, but we don't want to use this because probably the simplest way to do this is to take some super glue and just glue the slot in here and stick her in the base like so. I should probably be doing this in frame, right? So you guys can see what I'm working on. But anyway, yeah. So that would be the simplest way, and a lot of people start off with their miniatures before they really do any like basing stuff. They would just glue this in here, and they'd be good to go. They would paint the model to the best of their ability and whatnot. But we're gonna do a little bit different here because basing is a somewhat important thing to me. But we're gonna do something very quick. So what I did was I put together this secret weapon base. This is a resin base, and you can buy resin bases either like 30 mil or in this case, this is a 25 mil. So this is actually a base unto its own. It's its own piece. I bought that, glued it on top of the plastic 30 mil base, and I'm going to attach the model to it thusly. That said, we can't really do it with the tab on, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take some triangle cutters here. You can buy these at like the dollar store, or you can buy them at the Home Depot. They're a little bit more at the Home Depot. Do not buy these at the LGS because like the brand name ones they're just too expensive, and you don't need to do that. You can find these most places. So you can see I'm just going to clip that off, and I've got like a rough edge there now, right? It's not even. The way these cut is they kind of pinch off metal, and then they kind of chuck it. So I'm going to try to trim it a little bit closer to the true edge of the shoe. There we go. And now I need to actually fix that surface. So the next thing you're going to want for you brand new folks is you're going to want some needle files. You can find needle files again at the hardware store. You can find them at the dollar store. Here's an example of a needle file. This is just a flat needle file. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to gently file the bottom here. Okay, and the goal is not to really file into the model, but really just kind of get that bottom surface up nice and flat. There's a little bit of flash metal there on the heel. Heels are very delicate on models, so you have to be very careful with heels. And there's going to be another step here in the assembly that is fairly delicate. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to give that a quick file down until I'm nice and flat. It looks like I'm there. So again, needle file, triangle clippers. These are two things you will need. Now, I could very well take this model and glue it, just glue it right here. I'm probably going to glue it like that onto the base. And that would be fine, but I would have to hold this using super glue. I'd have to hold this for a long time. And this bond's not going to be very strong, right? Because there's just going to be two little dabs of glue here holding her in place. So what I was explaining to one of the folks yesterday with something like this is you're going to want to pin it. So we're going to do some pinning. But before we do some pinning, I've got a little bit of a seam line right there. A little seam. I don't know if the camera will pick it up or not, but just a little bit of a seam line there, and I can feel it running my finger over it. So before we even do that, I'm going to take out another needle file. I use a round one this time. And to gently file away this seam, because this is supposed to be, she's supposed to be bare-legged at the bottom of this kimono. And so I'm just going to gently file that down. Now the goal is just to get the line out. You don't want to file too much because you don't want to actually start to shape the model. That would be a very bad thing. Okay, so I'm using a round file here just to knock that edge down until I can't feel it anymore. You'll see that it's a shiny line, but that doesn't mean that the seam line means that you've actually just kind of shaved it down. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm gonna look and see if there's any other like bits of flash or anything that's not where it's supposed to be on the model here. So let me zoom in here so you can see. All right, so far so good. Looks pretty good. Now if this were a more complex model, a more complex metal miniature, you might have some arms to glue on, you might have weapons, you might have different parts of the torso, in which case you're gluing metal to metal. And my philosophy is when you glue metal to metal, you should really pin. In fact, when you glue metal to just about anything, including its base, you should pin. And I'm going to show you how to pin right now. Okay, so pinning is the process of taking a tiny little bit of rod like this. I'm going to use a bit of a paper clip here. And this paper clip is just I'm going to actually drill a hole and pop it into the bottom of this heel. And it's going to be sticking out the bottom. And that's actually going to give me a little bit of a mechanical advantage. And I'm going to drill a little hole, corresponding hole here into the base. And the rod will fit into that base. And it'll provide some dimensional stability to the model. Okay, and you can get these tiny little, like a micro drill set or a pin vise set. There's a bunch of different sets. There's like a P3 set. There's a Citadel set. And, you know, frankly, those are a little big. You can actually go on like Amazon and buy like a micro needle set or something. And so what I normally do is I use a drill to do this. I actually just sit here and I'll drill a tiny little hole. But because we're kind of pretending we're a little more on the beginning side tonight, I am gonna use an actual pin vise, and I hate pin vises. I do. I hate it because it's tedious, and I don't know. I might even get like sick of it in the middle of this and just not and switch over to the drill. All right, and the other thing is this particular bit may be too small for this pin vise. I'm using the Citadel pin vise, which is kind of expensive. But that said, this is one of the few tools that I actually like from Citadel as opposed to other pin vises because it's more comfortable. You know, you've got this rubber end here, which sits against the palm of your hand. And then I'm going to go ahead and start to drill this in. So you don't need to drill a deep hole for this. You just need enough of a hole to where the pin will be able to sit comfortably in there. I can already tell this vise is not good at holding this particular bit. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. And now if you have a good bit, you actually don't have to press too hard to do this. You really just need to keep the pin vise, the bit moving. I'm already kind of putting a little hole in there, which is good. That's what I want. And you just keep kind of checking with the tip of the drill to make sure your hole is good and that your pin is going to fit very snugly in there. Another reason why I might use a pin vise as opposed to a regular drill is you don't want a high-speed drill. You don't want to go so fast that you're melting the metal. But I use a really cheap like 9-volt drill to do this, and I just go really slow, and it's much nicer on your hands and all that stuff than using the pin vices. But the pin vices, you don't accidentally, it's harder to accidentally drill all the way through, right? Because I don't want to go all the way through the bottom of this foot here up through the top, because then you'll see a little pin sticking up the top of the model, and nobody likes that. So okay, so now I have actually a pretty good channel in there for my pin. I'm sorry that you can't really see it, but I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit of this off using my triangle cutters. So you don't need much. I'm going to show you how small this pin is. It's a very small pin. Now, pinning into bases, you can go a little bit longer. I'm just going to show you a small pin, though, because I'm trying to genericize it. So there's the size of a small pin there. And I'm going to show you how it kind of rests in the channel that I dug for it, that I drilled for it. Actually, I need to drill a little bit more because it's not resting in great. So if you're just tuning in, welcome to Play It Painted Live. This is actually an unscheduled live stream. I just decided to have a little fun tonight. I figured, you know what? We're done with Forgotten King for the most part. Let's go ahead and just do a little stream and follow up with some of the newer folks that might have picked up some painting yesterday during paint day and just want to kind of sit in and watch more of a complete process on a metal miniature. Okay, so there we go. You can see how this fits now. Again, I'm being very careful because I want to make sure that I don't drill through the top of this model's foot. Okay, that's pretty good. So you can see, let me see if I can show this to you. You can see how the pin is sticking up through the top of that. Hey, what's up, Tori? And that's what you want. You want that pin sticking out there. So now I'm going to take some super glue and put a little super glue in there. Here's a quick tip too. If you lick the end, if you lick the piece that you're going to glue, it actually helps the glue set faster. So it's just a weird little trick I picked up. I'm going to pop the pin in there. The other thing you can do is you can buy super glue accelerant, which is pretty cool. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to let that dry for a minute. And I always cap my glue. A lot of people just let the glue sit open like that. It drives me insane. All right, so then I'm going to drill in a hole here through this base. This would be a great spot for the actual drill bit, but hey, we're kicking it old school tonight. I'm not even going to do zenithal priming. Yes, I know. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. I might do a little airbrush spot on the kimono, but I don't know. We'll see. So here we go. And I'm not being that careful about how I'm drilling through here because I don't care if I drill through the bottom. It doesn't even matter. I can drill all the way through this. Oh, I almost did. It doesn't matter because who cares? No one's going to be looking up through the bottom of your miniature to see if you screwed up on the drilling part. And in fact, if anything, you could argue that it gives you a little bit more strength because now your pin is running all the way through the base and out the bottom. And therefore you have a much stronger pin in there. I cannot, man, I hate pin vices. I hate pin vices. You're watching Game of Thrones, nice. I watched tonight's episode already. if you're watching on HBO West, it looks like it's almost over at this point. But yeah, I watched it on HBO East, so we watched it back at, my wife and I watched it a few hours ago, and she's putting little guy to sleep. Little guy's not feeling well, so it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, Game of Thrones. We're not going to talk spoilers, right? Even though I don't think there really were any spoilers this last episode. Just a lot of catch up again. The Game of Thrones season, yeah. The last scene's good though, and I know you're not there yet, so. And I'll give my little 2 cents on Game of Thrones. I like Game of Thrones. It's just yeah. I like Game of Thrones, but there's some things that I still feel need to gripe about, because you can't really be a fan or a super fan unless you have something to gripe about. Not everything is just absolutely perfect the way you envision it. And a lot of people are critical of George R.R. Martin and finishing his series, and how the HBO series has been going. I wouldn't say I'm that big of a fan, enough of a fan to really get in and nitpick. My nitpicking or my complaints are going to be fairly general. So anyway, I've had enough with the pin vice stuff. I'm going to put the pin away. I've already drilled a reasonable hole. So let's see where we're at. Okay. So anyway, so I have a hole there. Here's the pin sticking out. I'm going to stick this in here. And it looks like she's going to fit pretty well right there. In fact, she fits so well that I don't really need to glue her in necessarily, but I'm going to, because, yeah. I mean, it's actually a very snug fit. There we go. So let's go ahead and throw the glue down. So I'm going to glue around the pin, and I'm going to glue the second shoe. And let's put her in here. Press firmly for about 20 seconds. But because of the way that fits, I don't really need to. I'm just going to let her sit here for a moment. I'm going to put a couple things away. Yeah, my wife really enjoys Game of Thrones. I like Game of Thrones. There's some characters that I really like. It's just I have my overall complaint is just that I just feel like, for the most part, it's a fairly joyless story, and you get these brief little glimpses of hope, or glimpses or exciting moments, but a lot of times it's just kind of, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like you're just like trapped in Siberia most of the time, waiting for something. And the characters are very fun, and they're very well put together. Although there's a lot of repeat characters and a lot of repeat themes I've noticed. For example, like when one main character gets a henchman, another main character gets a henchman. Or when there's one wedding going on, there's another wedding that goes on almost immediately. So George R.R. Martin uses a lot of kind of repetitive themes, and they happen at the same time as the stories are being told simultaneously. But that's neither here nor there. That's just general griping. I need a pin tool. Pin vise, yeah. They're very cool. They're good for, if you're going to work with metal miniatures, and I love metal miniatures. We were talking about this yesterday, because a lot of people don't like metal miniatures because they're kind of a pain to assemble. I love metal miniatures because they're beautiful to paint. So anyway, here we go. That's done. We are going to prime this model. And yesterday, I talked a little bit about some of the thought process I give to when I'm, between black or white or gray, because those are the three major types of primer out there, black or white or gray. And a lot of people ask, well, what should I be priming? What color? In general, if if you're going to prime black, the advantage there is it's easier to correct mistakes. The black is in the shadows. It helps you kind of, having a model that any spots that you miss are black, and it doesn't pop as much. On the other hand, white, the major advantage to white is you get to see some really bright color schemes, and you can play with some very bright colors, yellows, whites, pinks, that kind of stuff with white primer is fantastic. Gray gives you a little bit of a, somewhere in between point. So, so some people prime gray because they're not sure. Some people like me actually prime with all three types of primer on the same model, and that's a process called zenithal priming. I'll show you a quick example of that. That might be this type of model where you can see there's some parts of the model, the lowest parts of the model are black. The parts that are going to see the model are white. And this helps in terms of pre-shading and pre-highlighting miniatures, especially if you're using airbrush. It's a very, very useful thing to do. All right, so where did my bottles go? Oh, we gotta find those water bottles. They're here somewhere. Otherwise, I will just, well, wait, that looks like a water bottle. I hope that's not alcohol. Anyway, let's prime the model. And because we're kind of kicking it the old school play it painted style, we're going to do this. We're going to do white. So I'm going to use surface primer white. A lot of people that were doing brush painting yesterday ended up going white because they wanted brighter colors. They wanted brighter color schemes. And I'm kind of an old school fan of white. That's where I used to prime all my models white before I really incorporated airbrush fully repertoire. Okay, so, and you can also use a spray primer to do this, or like a spray can primer to do this. I'm going to use the trusty handy dandy airbrush. And when you airbrush primer, don't try to get it all in one coat. Spend a couple of thin passes. I've got this primer's sitting on me. Not really sure why it's doing that, but kind of annoying. You can actually hear it sitting on camera, can't you? I got the audio book 1, Game of Thrones. He's got too many books. Yeah, it's a very involved world, very deep world, and I love that. And I think most people really, it's one of the features that they really like about Game of Thrones. It's also one of the things that makes it a logistical nightmare to try to follow sometimes. Okay. I'm actually out of primer at this point, but I'm going to shoot another coat of white primer on there. So you can see I did a quick thin coat of white primer. Let's do another one. And I'm only using like a couple of drops of this stuff when I spray. All right, so okay. Cool. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and clean out our airbrush. Just going to use a little denatured alcohol. That's usually what I use as a solvent. Some people use Windex. Some people use airbrush cleaner. Airbrush cleaner is fantastic, by the way. And I do recommend using an airbrush cleaner because those cleaners are they'll clean your airbrush without messing with the seals. A lot of these other solvents will start to eat away at your seals. So, but I'm a cheap bastard, and I might run a little bit of airbrush cleaner through here, but most of the cleaning I expect to do with the denatured alcohol. All right, so if you're just tuning in, welcome to Play It Painted Live. Let us know what you're painting, what you should be painting. This is kind of an impromptu stream. Just decided to do a little painting tonight because, once again, we're just painting for fun tonight because, you know, all the objectives are done. For the main objectives for the challenge are done. So tonight is let's just do something for fun, and let's piggyback off of yesterday's event and just kind of show the process of painting a miniature. Right, so right now I'm just cleaning my airbrush while that prime coat dries. Now, the nice thing about airbrush priming, one, you can do it indoors. Two, this is going to be dry in like a minute. It should almost pretty much be dry, in fact. But yeah, airbrush priming is fantastic. So even if you end up not being like an airbrush dynamo or a diehard or whatever, it's just a great thing, a very great, convenient thing to have on hand. And most of the time, though, I mean, if you're airbrushing primer, you will get to a point where you get much more comfortable with your trigger memory and keeping the mixtures clean and all that, and you can start to play around. I'm going to run a little bit of airbrush cleaner through this. It's at the end, and I don't think I'm going to, because we're going to paint this old school, and I don't think I'm going to I don't think I will airbrush any effects on this model. It's just this is just a very fun model to paint, period. Okay, and that way you can see the whole, like, the basic painting stuff. I think that's what a lot of people were asking me for yesterday. Hey, you know, you're breaking out the airbrush, and it's great that you're priming stuff for people, and you showed us zenithal, you showed us some highlighting using airbrush, but, you know, I don't have access to an airbrush. I just want to paint something. So tonight, this video is going to be for you. All right, and we'll talk about the question of the day too, because the question of the day is kind of cool, kind of a personal thing. Tori, I watched your day 10 video and saw your answer to question 10. A little bit, but I didn't really like rehearse an answer or anything like that. All right, so now let's get down to the painting, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to overview how I'm going to approach painting this model. Okay, so I have a general idea of what colors I like, so the basics of this is start from the outside in. Start from the innermost layers of the model and work your way out. In general, we're going to work on skin first, so face, skin, then out towards the robe, the other parts of the model, and then I normally paint in the base last, or I work on basing last. Okay, and there's actually a point in this where I will mount the model, and I'll show you that as well. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to make sure this is water and not denatured alcohol, because I'm a dummy, and I didn't label my little squirt bottles here. So we're going to do that. And we're going to paint the eyes. And the other thing I'm going to do tonight is, Tori, I saw that you did a review of these Citadel brushes. I'm going to try one of these out. This is, I got the shade brush, the medium shade brush. And I'm going to compare that to a Winsor Newton Series 7 size 3. Okay, so here's a Winsor Newton Series 7 size 3. This is one of the, this is basically the Cadillac of paintbrushes in the miniature painting arena. We'll compare that to this guy here, the Citadel shade brush. And if you look, they're almost identical in size. They're almost identical, but I can already see something there that I'll point out. So first thing, you can see, might just be the way I stored this brush and took care of it, but look at the Winsor Newton, look at the tip on that. Look at that. That's a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush tip. it's as sharp as a needle. Like I could dot an eye with that, no problem. The Citadel one, big belly, which I like, good bristle length. For this type of brush, it's a little much to ask for a tip this fine on a brush this big. So I'm going to cut it some slack, but that is a marked difference between these two. Is the Winsor Newton, the tip is just so sharp on that. And this one, I might be able to pull it into a sharp tip. So I'm going to run a little water on it. I'm going to pull it into a sharp tip like that. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. We'll see how it actually does with paint on it tonight. But anyways, just another side there. But before I do that, I'm going to move on to, I'm going to paint some eyes, right? Because I always start with eyes. I did a first impression, didn't use it yet. Okay, cool. Well, I'll use mine tonight and we'll collect live feedback on it. Okay, so I do something a little different than most people do with regards to miniature eyes, okay? So most miniature painters, I know a lot of miniature painters that don't even paint in eyes, and they have very good reasons not to paint in eyes. One, it's wrong for scale. Two, it doesn't look as real. And three, if you screw up eyes, you really screw up the model. It really looks bad. I'm an eye painter. I like to paint eyes. I think it's just a very important thing for me to look at. But what I do different is I actually paint the eyes in first before I paint in the base coat skin on the face. And not a lot of miniature painters do that. And I think only recently more miniature painters started to do that, because I really do think it's a better way to approach faces and eyes, is to paint them first, because you can shape them, you can correct them much more easily from a subtractive method rather than an additive method. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little black here, just a little bit. And this miniature has anime eyes, which is interesting. Hey, what's up, .40K Orcs? What's up, man? Welcome to Play It Painted. If you're painting, if either of you guys want to hop on this feed, more than welcome to. I can shoot you an invite. But anyway, we're just going to be painting this miniature right here. Okay, so this is a Winsor Newton size 0. This is my eye brush. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some black and I'm going to paint in the entire eye area. And you don't have to be terribly careful when you do this part. You make sure you get all of the eye. And in fact, in the case of a female model, you actually draw the black out a little bit further than you normally would, because we want this outline to just be a little bit more prominent than it would be on, say, a male miniature, because makeup, that's why. Sometimes, especially like a doll, like this is like a very geisha style anime miniature, we want that exaggerated, makeup-y look on the eyes. Okay. Okay. So we are going to paint in some anime eyes at a very small scale. Hey, what's up, Greenleaf Terrain? Thanks for popping in. So right now, just painted in the eyes, basically the whole socket, and I'm like way off on one of them, but we'll correct that. That's the beauty of doing it this way, is you actually paint in the eyes, you paint in the shapes, you paint in the eyes, and then you basically fix everything after. Okay? Let's do that. So what are you guys working on? What are you guys painting? Or are you guys just building? I know Adam over at Greenleaf, you always seem to be busy building and painting. Okay. So I'm going to put a little white down. Another beginner question: what kind of ratios do I use to thin? And there's a lot of advice floating around for this. People say, get it to where it's the consistency of milk or whatever, I say start at 1:1 and go up from there if you need to. In general, it should really be a very watery, thin consistency. I guess milk would be appropriate, but I don't know. It's very difficult to explain. But in the case of like white, it's a very high pigmented paint. I go usually a little than 1:1, like a 2:1, and I'm using Vallejo model color white, so that is kind of a thicker white. Okay, so now I'm going to take the white and I'm going to paint in the inner part of that orbit there. Okay, and I'll zoom in so that we can see how this is going. To do the other eye, a lot of times you do that one upside down. Making smoke markers at the moment. I'm about to head to bed. Cool, man. Always like watching your updates. See what you're working on for clients or for whatever. You do some pretty awesome work, dude. Actually, all you guys on here do awesome stuff. I've been trying to follow as many of the May painting projects as possible. Okay, so let me zoom in here real quick. So you can see the outline of the eyes are black, the inside are white. Kind of superhero looking at the moment. So that's cool. So now if this were a normal 30 mil model, I would just paint in a little black and connect the dots and make eyes. I'm going to do a little anime on it, so I'm going to do a little bit of this light green. And this is going to take up almost all of the white area of the eye. Okay. This is where, and you know, when you're doing this part, you do want to be a little more precise. So I'm actually going to pull her off camera because I actually need to pull the miniature a little closer to my body to make sure I'm doing this correctly. So there we go. Now, a greenness light, a lot of people, the casual viewer of this model will not be able to notice. They won't see. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Not a big deal. This is just how I do these particular miniatures. Thanks, mate. Just finished Infinity ALF commission today. I actually have an ALF Force for Infinity. I love painting those. Super fun. And I actually have a couple of ALF models that I need to paint. I need to paint the bootleg Penthesilea, and I'll be painting Thamaris the Iridos. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. The reporter guy. I'll be painting him this week. Okay, so you can see if I can get this to focus. I don't even know if it's picking up on camera, but you can see the green takes up almost the entirety of the whites of the eyes. So now we come back in and dot the eyes with the black. We dot the center of the eyes with the black, just like you would a normal miniature. But I want this to be a little cartoony, so we're just going to punch it up a little bit. Okay. Doesn't look that impressive so far. Almost looks like frog eyes right now. Let's see if we can go. Here we go. And again, we're going to go very slow tonight because this is more of I'm putting this video out more for the people that were painting with me yesterday and wanted to see a little more of a complete process. Okay. So finally, I'm going to remix my white, and I'm going to do teeny tiny little dot, a teeny tiny little dot, and I mean teeny tiny little dot in the corner of each eye. And there's no way anyone's going to see that. But okay. Just decided to paint it that way. That was completely out of frame. Yes, I know. I can't. I cannot do this level of detail with the camera in frame. So I'm going to apologize in advance while I'm working on this. There we go. All right. Okay. And besides, like I said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But here you can kind of see it. Actually, you can't even see the detail on there, can you? That's funny. That is too funny. Okay. That's okay. Because we got to work on skin next, so not a big deal. I'm just going to fix one little pupil part here. Okay, there we go. All right, so now that we have the eyes in, you can see the eyes are way too big, even for anime eyes. Those are way too big. Whoa, and I can't get my camera to actually focus. Come on. What we're going to do now is we are going to frame the face. So we're gonna paint in basically the skin undercoat for the whole model, and we're gonna use that to kind of cut in around the eyes. Okay, so the color I use is Vallejo Game Color Extra Opaque Heavy Skin Tone. So this extra opaque means it's a very high pigment load, very high hiding color here. And so this is perfect for doing your skin undercoat and for fixing your weird anime eyes. I think the only other models that have like anime eyes at this type of scale are like Relic Knights miniatures. I don't think Infinity models have very tiny eyes, because Infinity is kind of anime themed in a way, but it's like Ghost in the Shell type anime, so it's not this almost chibi style anime. So I'm gonna paint this in. And again, the goal is just cut around the eyes. And we're just going to keep working on shrinking the black around the eyes until the eyes are the appropriate size. Now for this model, because it is anime themed, the eyes are still going to be abnormally large. So just bear that in mind. You normally, like I said, at the scale model, if you're painting eyes, it's usually just black, then white centers, and then black again to dot the eyes. But I did a little extra this time. And okay. And let's trim. So One thing, I'll say the eyes are crooked. It's weird. It's a little weird. So I'm gonna trim them down a little bit more than I normally would, because I got it. The sculpt is actually got one eye set a bit higher than the other one, so I'm actually gonna just try to even them out by shrinking the size of the eyes just a hair. And they'll look a little more even. They also should be roughly the same shape. There we go. Now they're still, man, they're still not even. All right. Oh no. Oh, they look great when you're just looking down the side of the miniature. When you look at it head on, you're like, hey, crooked eye. That's some crooked eyes there, lady. It's okay. All right. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It just looks, I'll show it to you guys. The fact that they're a little crooked and the fact that that they're anime eyes, so they're bigger, are kind of working together to make the model look a little terrifying. Yeah. All right. Let me show it to you. This is in the works. It doesn't look too bad. I can continue to trim it down, but the eyes aren't, they're just not exactly even. It's funny. Yeah, I can try to trim them down a little bit. Actually, let's actually use a different tactic. Let's line the other eye a little sharper so that they do look like that should help them look a little more even. There we go. A little bit. And then retrim it. There. Okay. Cool. All right. So now let's continue to base coat the miniature. So I'm going to base coat all the skin parts. And again, just bear in mind that this deep skin tone is actually the undercoat, and it's not going to be the base coat of the skin. This should go pretty quick from here on. There's not a whole lot of detail to this miniature, which is part of why I chose it for tonight's stream. Okay. Because I want to show off just basic stuff. Basic painting stuff. All right. So I'm painting in skin here. All right. So once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to Play It Painted Live. Just painting this Takawashi University miniature from Ninja Division / Soda Pop Miniatures. It's a metal model, so one of the things that we're doing is kind of showing off the overall process of painting a metal miniature. Okay. So looking pretty good so far. Let me just close off this Here we go. There we go. I'll let that dry for a second. And so let's talk about the question of the day. And I'll pull that up on, let's pull that up on another browser. So let's go to the Matte Painting Challenge. Oh. I know it was, I want to just get the actual question and read that verbatim to make sure that I'm answering it properly. So let's go to Matte Painting Challenge. It's been a very fun year for the challenge. It feels like there's a lot more energy in the group, a lot more involvement. All right. There we go. Okay. And we're going to go to question 10. Hollywood makes a movie about you, specifically you and your hobby, and how it changed the world for the better. What would it be called? Who would play you in the film? I guess the name of the film would be my my title, Play It Painted. What would it be called? Yeah. Who would play me in the film? I don't know. The Rock, because that's funny. Or who else could play me? I guess Jonah Hill. Why not? Jonah Hill, because it would be funny. He could be sarcastic. He could paint miniatures. You just see his hands. He's got bigger, wider hands than me, but whatever. That would be cool. Yeah, we can call it Play It Painted, or we could call it, Late Night with the Brush, or something like that. Anyway, that's my answer. That answer sucked, I know, but we're going to keep painting anyway. All right, so next up, we are going to start to mix in the actual color of our skin, and we're going to go with basic skin tone here. Oh, thanks for typing in the question in the chat there, Tori. I don't know that I mean, if there's a movie about me, I hope that it's about something hilarious, like a embarrassing moment in my life, or or maybe I'm like the enemy of something else. Maybe this is about equal rights for unpainted miniatures, and I'm like the bad guy in the movie. I'm like leading the pitchforks and the mob against this poor innocent gamer that's like, I hate painting miniatures and I only like gray, and I'm the bad guy in the movie. Like, oh yeah. The guy would be like, play it however. And I would be like, no, it's better painted. The games are more fun if you paint, and it's a great hobby. And then they like shoot me or something. I think that would be funny. To me. It wouldn't be funny to anybody else. Everybody else would be like, wow, people take this way too seriously. That's probably, yeah. So this is why I should never be in charge of making movies or deciding film plots of movies. Okay, so now I mixed in basic skin tone in with the deep flesh, and I'm painting in a highlight. The highlight for this, because this is a base coat, this should take up about 85% of the original area I painted with basic skin tone. I really only want basic skin tone to be in the cracks and the areas that yeah, wow. Yeah, this model has a jacked up face. It's just, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not bad, but I'm going to have to really clean up the eyes here to get them to work. They're too far apart too. That's the problem with these eyes. Okay. So once again, welcome to Play Painted Live. Just know what you're painting, what you should be painting. Tonight we're just having a little fun with this Takahashi University miniature. And I'm painting in the base coat on the skin. Skin and face are very important features of the miniature to me. So I don't mind spending a little extra time trying to get it right. Although this one, her eyeballs are just so far apart. She almost looks kind of like a fish. Okay, so this base coat's going down. Okay, so we're going to let that layer dry. And we're going to do a few more layers. So I'm going to add a little bit more basic skin tone to that same mix. And we're just going to keep layering. Right? And the more basic skin tone I add, the less total area I'm going over, because we're building up to a higher and higher color. And you can see I'm really, really thinning it. This is a key component. Probably the #1 advice I give to all new painters. Thin and be patient, because you're going to paint the same surface multiple times. It's not the same thing as just putting color on something, filling it in, and being done. This is more about ultra thin layers. The other thing I'm doing is when the brush is going off camera here, I'm actually dabbing it into a cloth to get rid of the excess moisture, because when you thin the paints, now you have a really watery liquid, and if you don't know how to handle said watery liquid, you're going to be in trouble. So, all right, and I'm just going to keep shrinking these eyeballs to get them down to normal human size. And I'm also doing that to try to make them look a little more even. Because right now, they look a little cartoony with how far apart they are. But she's coming along. She's looking all right. I'm going to do 2 layers with this mix, and then I'm going to step it up again. Now, you can wash the miniatures if you find that you're going too stark in your layering. You can wash the miniature. That will help smooth out transitions a bit. And for this particular formula of skin, I recommend the skin tone. I actually recommend the sepia tone. So Seraphim Sepia, or Vallejo Sepia ink. But I really am partial to the Seraphim Sepia, because it's just nice, kind of a honey brown color. It's awesome. That's a good layer. Okay. Now the other thing this model has is this model has lipstick too. Well, she has a mouth, and she's supposed to be like a geisha, so we're going to put some lipstick on her. Okay, so while that's drying, I'm going to grab some of this color here, the Warlord Purple. Give me a drop of that. Drop of water. And I'm going to mix some of the skin tone in. And we're going to make her a little lipstick. It's important to mix the skin in to kind of soften it up a little bit. You don't want to have this stark purple thing on her face. She'll look like a clown. Here, I need more paint. Let's use the Citadel. Let's see how much paint it's pulling up. That's a fair bit. It's a fair bit it pulled up. So that's cool. That tells me that the belly on this is actually pretty good, pretty absorbent. All right, and I was able to pull it back into a nice sharp tip, so that's a good sign. All right. Anyway, so now I'm gonna go ahead and paint in the lips. Oh man. Okay. There we go. All right. So now that that's down, I can now correct the lips. I'm gonna show you the face. It's not really showing you much, is it? Actually, it looks fairly disappointing on camera. Anyway, now what we can do is we can add more basic skin tone, and we're going to do some of the final highlight. Now, for the final highlighting, instead of adding basic skin tone to the mix, I'm going to put basic skin tone down, and I'm going to add that color to it. And that will be the final couple of layers. All right. And here, I'm just going to do the topmost bits of things. So tip of the nose, tops of the cheeks, and again, this is as thin as you can go. Pretty good. This is a very cool range. All right. So now we'll highlight on the hands and on the legs. And skin is just about done. Like I said, I could have washed this. We'll actually find out here as I'm painting the legs if I want to wash it or not. My instinct is telling me no. I don't need to wash this. Not unless I want to. All right, so let's go ahead. Put that in there. Put that in there. Now, as far as making movies, especially if you're going to do like remakes or anything like that, my whole attitude is, and I'm sorry, I'm back at the Werboste question. If you're making a remake of something, I'm of the opinion is you really should only remake a miniature if or remake a movie if the original movie kind of failed you in some way. Like if it had crazy potential, you really liked something about it, but it was implemented poorly, or maybe you didn't like the casting. So maybe, if you change some of the actors around, maybe you'd like it a little bit better. I'm of the opinion is those are good, legitimate reasons to want to do a remake. But otherwise, I don't like that, what Hollywood usually does is when they do a remake, they're just looking to cash in on the nostalgia behind an already established franchise. So that's my little nerdy soapbox moment. Okay, so we're gonna let those. We're gonna let that layer dry. I don't know. Haven't decided. I don't think I'm gonna wash it though. And I know she looks really washed out on camera because she's primed white. So now that I'm done with like the major detail, at least for now, and that face is still bothering me. Let's see. It looks okay. It looks okay. Could be better, but it's not terrible. But yeah, now that this is done, I can mount the miniature. And mounting the miniature is actually quite nice because it allows you better control when you're painting the miniature. The reason why I paint the eyes and some of the finer points in first before I do that is because I often need to pull the miniature very close to me, and therefore, if it's on one of these, then I can't pull it in as close as I want. Anyway, what is this? This is an old IWM paint pot that I use as a handle. So I've got some poster tack right here. This is a very common miniature painter trick here. And I'm just going to push that down there so it's nice and snug. And now I have a handle which I can rotate and paint the miniature this way, and it's a lot easier. I'm also going to pull the camera a bit closer to me so that it's a little more comfortable for me and you can see what I'm painting. With today's movie magic moments, everyone seems high on CGI things. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes they just want to redo movies because they think they have the technology to pull it off in a better manner. And I don't really fault anyone for wanting to make a buck. It's just not my personal thing. Okay, so now let's go ahead and paint this miniature. And the base coat is going to be this. And so it's going to be this, and I'm going to want to transition it towards that at the bottom. And I'm going to pull a nice pink. Transition it towards a pink at the top. Okay, so now we're going to do a true base coat on this miniature using this Warlord purple. Okay, and I'm going to use the GW shader brush to actually apply this. So some Warlord purple. So don't fail me, GW brush. This is like GW gets almost none of my money these days besides Seraphim Sepia. So I decided I would try this brush because I like to try new products, especially brushes that are out in the marketplace. Because so many people ask me for brush recommendations, and I can't always just recommend, use Series 7, use Winsor Newton Series 7, because Series 7 isn't right for everybody. It's an expensive brush, and some people have a hard time gaining access to to that type of brush. So sometimes I have to tell people to use Army brushes or Reaper brushes, or I don't know. We'll see how these GW brushes work. Okay, so I mean overall, tip looks pretty good. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is the main body will be that purple transition, and then I may do like a yellow goldish type thing here in the middle. So the trim will also be kind of a yellow goldish thing here. So here we go with painting this part. First thing I'll say about this brush is I do like the belly, and the control seems to be adequate. So not bad. We'll see. For another comparison, I do have an Army Painter brush. Problem with the Army Painter brush is I use it for such rugged tasks that I don't think at this point would be fair to compare, because I've thrashed that tip pretty bad. So right now I'm just doing a base coat. And you can see it's pretty thin. You can still see the white primer underneath. Oh, a little too far there. It's okay. Such a fun miniature, though. Overall, very fun. Weird eyes notwithstanding. Kind of like that two-tone right there, but now let's keep going. Okay. This might be a good cheap workhorse brush, because no one really needs a Series 7 number 3, really, as long as you've got a brush that can reasonably hold tip and load up with a fair bit of paint. Should be good. What's with the crinkle right there? I think that's the miniature. So, while I'm doing this, I guess I can recap yesterday. All right, so yesterday, we did a paint day at our LGS West. Very fun day overall. Good turnout for the paint day. A lot of people interested in just getting some painting done. Some people showed up with the hope that we'd actually sit down and teach them. And I think for those folks, I hope that we were accurate or adequate in addressing your painting questions and needs. I hope we were. Would be good to collect a little feedback from folks that attended that event. But also, no news is good news. All right, so there's that. And I could wet blend it, or I can just continue to paint. I think, yeah, or I am planning on painting some flowers on the rope. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with this turquoise. And instead of using water, this time I'm going to use a little glaze medium because I want this, I want the turquoise to be more transparent. I want to have that transition. So I'm going to add some turquoise to that. Oops. And glaze medium to turquoise, a little bit of water, not much water, like 1 to 1 to 1. And the idea is to get a really thin glaze coat going. And I'm going to start down here on the bottom. You can still see the Warlock purple through it. And I'm going to start it's actually mixing with the Warlock purple to a degree. And it's forming a more of a true purple down there at the bottom. Which is kind of cool. And we'll pull it up. So this is how you would do it without using an airbrush. You wanted a smooth transition. Okay, I need a little more water. So I'm going to add a little more water, make this even thinner. Start to pull up on it. So I'm just gently pulling the glaze up towards the rest of the model. Whoa, that one hit a seam and decided to come all the way up. We're not going to allow that to happen. I'm actually going to knock that off. But you can see what I'm going for here. There's kind of a transition. And using glazes is a cool way to do this. Because you can see the color underneath showing through. And the whole idea with glazes is you just keep layering them up. And you concentrate where you want the color to look more opaque as opposed to transparent. So that's going to be the bottom of this. And in fact, I'm going to do this. So that you can actually see a color transition from there to there. I'm going to finish that around. Transition is going to continue the back of the model. So you can see how that the very first layer shows up as a blue, and as I continue to add more layers of the glaze, it starts to look more turquoise. Glazes are great if you know, when you're trying to do transitions and you want to really take your time. Again, we're just painting this miniature for fun. I'll probably drop her into some of my Relic Knights crews for fun. But ultimately, I'm just painting this because I want to show off to people just a few different basic things. Oh, I totally forgot to paint the sandals in. Now, we're going to see how the GW brush handles a little precision. So I'm going to paint the little thongs here. and see how it does. Holding a tip seems pretty easy on this brush. That's saying a lot, because this is a medium-sized shader brush. This is not going to be used in this capacity very often, but it's good to know that it can hold a tip. It gives me some confidence in being able to use this as one of my workhorse brushes, or maybe even a brush that I recommend to people that are in a hobby store that aren't going to be ordering Winsor Newton brushes online. Yeah, looks pretty good. So I'm going to go purple heels on this. Yeah, pretty good control here with this GW brush. I dare say I might recommend this to people that aren't going to be using either Raphael's or Winsor Newton. Seems decent enough. I should try out their detail brushes, see if those brushes have a good belly to them and how well they transmit fine detail. Okay, cool. Yeah, sandals were nice. Let's do a little more transition on the sleeves. Well, there we go. Sometimes I'm too thin. And all right, so there's that. Maybe I'll do even like a little. No, it's fine. Now, let's do the pink. So now I'm going to do squid pink, and I'm also going to turn this into a glaze. Same thing. Are the bristles natural or synthetic? Dealing with curly synthetic bristles is a pain. Yes, these are natural bristle brushes. I don't know if they're Kolinsky brushes. They're definitely a sable brush, though. I can tell just from having used so many different kinds of brushes that these are sable brushes. I don't know if they're Kolinsky sable, but they seem to do the trick. I mean, we'll see how they wash later on tonight, but they seem okay. I mean, it's not. I can already tell that I'm giving up some control against using the Series 7, because the Series 7 is just so good at keeping that point. It's just crazy. The Series 7 are just amazing brushes. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like Raphael 8404s. I'm a Winsor Newton guy. I think they're just beautiful brushes, and I swear by them. And but it's good to have a couple different substitutes, right? Because just like when Winsor Newton brushes weren't available for a while in the US, we had to just scrape and find whatever we could. Synthetic brushes, I don't even know if I keep any synthetic brushes in my collection anymore. And I used to swear by them. I used to use lots and lots of synthetic brushes, but synthetic brushes are kind of a rip. I mean, they have like gold Taclon. They have all these weird trade names for synthetic brushes, but they all curl. So like, who cares? Call it gold Taclon, call it high quality, or you can have the gold bristles, you can have the clear white bristles. I forgot Armory. I think Armory put those brushes out with the clear white bristles. But who cares? All those brushes lasted the same, and they cost more than just like the generic Michael stuff. So I hated synthetic brushes. And, the minute I moved away from that, I went to the Reaper Kolinsky Sable, and then Series 7. I was like, well, what was I doing with these synthetic brushes? Because I used to just throw them out. Once the tip started to, once I started to lose the tip, I would just throw them out. just wasn't worth it. So anyway, so now I've got that pink, and it's a glaze also. So I'm going to use it to highlight and kind of draw down. So I'm highlighting a line down the brush here. Down the kimono. And it is see-through because it's a glaze. And now I'm going to highlight the model. Thanks for tuning in, by the way, guys. Hope everybody out there had a good Mother's Day. I know I did. Took my my wife and my mother, took them out to lunch today. Little boy was doing good. Little boy is kind of fighting a flu right now. That means I'm actually going to be taking tomorrow off work to take him to the doctor because it's been a while now, and he's had a fever for most of the day. But he's in good spirits, so a lot of that could just be teething. But the wife and I are new parents, so we may be call us a little bit paranoid, but we're gonna take him in anyway. Have him checked out, make sure that it's nothing out of the ordinary. His temperature wasn't running that high, but you just have to do stuff like that. But yeah, overall, good Mother's Day. Again, paint day yesterday was fantastic. So loved that. So now I'm giving that pink highlight there. So we've got a really kind of a weird transition from pink to Warlock Purple to that teal color. But as far as kimonos go, I've seen kimonos that are like that transition like that. And again, with the glazes, all we're really trying to do is pull the glazes nice and tight, give us a reasonable transition. With the airbrush, this would be a little cleaner, a little smoother transition, but we're not doing the airbrush tonight, and that's on purpose. We're just messing around with good old paintbrush, pot and brush style painting. And then I'm going to use a little of that Warlock Purple, smoothing this out a little bit more. There you go. There we go. And I'm just trying to simplify these transitions a little bit. And then we're going to do some freehand on this because look at how flat this model is. It has so many just raw areas here that we're going to come in and do some freehand. That would be fun. All right. Next up, let's go ahead and paint in the gold parts of the model, or the goldish trim. I'm going to use this heavy gold brown as the base coat. And again, we're testing out that, well, this looks just like yellow ochre. I'm going to add a little brown to it, make it, I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to add a little bit of this. Well, I have a brown, yeah, I do. So I'm going to do a leather brown. Add that to it. Once again, welcome to Play It Painted Live. We're just messing around tonight. We're really just painting for the hell of it, painting for fun. And I like that. I like to be in that position because that's fun. And we're test driving these GW, the new GW brushes. What's the name of this range of brushes, by the way, Tori? Do you know? I don't know what they're called. Is there like a name for the range? Are they just called hobby brushes, or what are these? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, see, look, holding up a pretty nice tip there. If I'm feeling really brave, I might use it to do the freehand on the kimono. We'll see. We'll see. We don't want to go too crazy. Right? We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. That's nice. Man, that was scary. Just to pull that so close to the face that we've been. Citadel paint system brushes, as far as I know. Citadel paint system brushes. Okay. Works for me. I just picked one up because everything was 20% off yesterday at the LGS because of paint day. So they do look, they do seem to be, this one seems to be painting pretty well. Conversely, that Reaper sable brush that I bought, hated that nearly immediately after starting to paint with it because the tip just decided to fan out on me and it was horrible. Yeah, we're going to see how. I actually probably will freehand with this just to see how it holds up. Pretty good. So far, so good. Let's start on this red hair. All right, so red hair, pretty simple. Find it. Take this Parasite Brown and I'm going to mix a drop of that Parasite Brown in with an actual orange. So we're going to use Orange Fire. Using a lot of game color tonight. And I don't know why. Just decided. Let's just use some game color tonight. All right, so there's that. And like one drop of this Parasite Brown. Mix that with some water. All right. For my main project, I am done with painting, so I can't use my new GW brushes. Yeah, but you could, I mean, there's still 3 weeks left in the challenge. You could pick up a new project and paint that, right? I don't know. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep painting. I'm going to paint all, every day that I can, even though my original pledge for the project is done. Oh, that's way too bright. That's way too bright. I need an actual muddier orange. So let's go find a muddier orange. Wow, cannot seem to find my orange. My painting system, my paint storage system is just, so sharply controlled, I say sarcastically. So we're going to use clear orange from the model color range. Put that down. And that's just too. Ooh. Yeah. That's the actual color I want right there. So let's mix that in. Still seems too bright. But you know, it's anime, so what are you going to do? I'm not going to be terribly broken up if see that? Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Just keep painting that in. But yeah, I loved Paint Day. Paint Day was fantastic because just painting with a bunch of people live and, exchanging ideas, hearing people. A lot of people, when you ask them about their project, they get really passionate about, like, oh yeah, and I'm going to do this, and this is going to be a thing, and I'm going to convert the model this way. I'm going to use this color scheme. I'm going to base it off of this thing this movie I've seen or whatever. I love conversations like that because when people are that enthusiastic about their projects, it's infectious, right? And you get excited for them, and you can't wait to see how they actually pull off what they're telling you about. So I absolutely love that about Paint Day. And immediately after the event was over, there was some clamor about, hey, we want to do this again. When are you going to be available to do it again? And so I'm going to look at my calendar. We're going to see what we can line up with the store about doing another Paint Day. So we'll see. That might be on the horizon. That's quite an orange, but that's okay. We will fix that. She looks like the Wendy's chick right now. We'll see. That's not a bad thing to look like the Wendy's chick, but I'm building mode for diorama part of my project though. Okay, cool. All right. Where's my little detail brush go? I want to fix something real quick. Where did it go? There it is. I'm gonna still doing little bits and pieces to make the eyeballs work. Although I'm not that disappointed in them. There we go. Yeah, I think I just need a little Oh, it's pretty good actually. Okay. Anyway, let's continue with the glazing. I think glazes are cool because you can do these really cool kind of blendy transitions. Okay. Pretty cool. All right. Now, next up, let's do a little highlight on the, oh wait, I need to, that's the skin, sorry. Actually need to use this. Finish the border down here. And we're almost ready to do freehand stuff. Oh, that's like a bunny face up there. Should probably paint that in at some point. Anyway, let's mix in a little bit of white to that, to the gold stuff that I'm doing. Let's put that in. Just a little bit of white, not too much. And I'm going to highlight. So again, still using the GW brush for this kind of stuff. Guys, I want this to be a workhorse brush, so I'm going to use it for a lot of this type of work. And it looks to be doing pretty well. No real complaints. Okay. All right. One little highlight here. Cool. Okay. She's coming along. Come along. All right. Pretty good. I think my transitions on the arms are just too sharp. So I'm going to soften them up a little bit. There we go. Not that it's a big deal because I'm going to do the hand. When I do the freehand, you're not going to see a lot of this. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Seraphim Sepia wash over most of it. The hair, whatnot. Oh, you know what? Before I even do that, though, I should start painting in the base, the sand. So I'm going to start to knock out the sand. And I'm just doing that same kind of golden brown as the base coat. It's kind of an ochre color. right? That looks pretty good. And I got all this bamboo to paint down here too. It's pretty easy though. So let's do that. Okay. And let's do the, I'm going to use kind of a medium green on the bamboo and highlight it up. So intermediate green here. Let's just keep going. So we're moving pretty quick at this point. There's no reason to go terribly slow. But I want those glazes to dry. That's why I'm doing a bunch of other stuff in the meantime. Because you do, the one downside to glazes is they do take a while to dry. It's kind of an upside and a downside because you want glazes to stay wet long enough so that you can actually pull those edges where you want them to be. But it's also kind of a downside because when you want to paint something fast, you pull your glazes, you do your transition, and then it's like, oh, now I gotta wait. So, okay. So we're gonna let that dry. Looking pretty good though. All right. And let's do our sepia wash now. So now take the sepia and I'm just gonna do, see how I did nothing on the little mask up here? I'm just gonna wash it with the sepia so that I can see where the details actually land on that mask. And I'm gonna sepia wash the hair. A lot of times I sepia wash the skin too, but in this case, I don't really see much of a need to. I'm sepia washing the kind of the middle part of the kimono. And we'll sepia wash the seam and sepia wash the top. There. Pretty good. Okay. And then as that's drying, I'll do the highlights. But now we're actually at a point where we can start doing freehand. So let's do that. I'm going to put away the GW brush because it's actually served pretty well. One thing I'll note, it does seem to, paint does seem to kind of stick on the bristles a little bit more than on the Winsor Newton brush. So the Winsor Newton series 3 that I use still has a bit of that issue to it. All right, I am going to use, I want to use an off-white for this, for the like floral patterns and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put this off-white down. I need a spot for it though. How about right here? All right, so I'm going to mix that up. And I'm just painting freehand stuff. I was looking at kimono patterns today, just for inspiration. And there's some really beautiful stuff out there. So I'm just kind of making up this pattern right now. And that's okay. One thing I learned looking at the kimono patterns is you can just make up patterns like this, and no one's really going to call you on it. It's just going to look, it's like, oh, it's a kimono. Of course, it's going to have a like a florally type of pattern to it. Mine looks kind of like a claw right now. Kind of funny. Okay. So there's that. And I suppose if this were closer in, I could paint in the tiny little fronds and all that stuff. But we're not going to do that. There you go. Now let's do some more freehand over here. Pretty cool, like transition. Scale 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high. What number would you give the GW brush? It's a good question. Well, I've only used it the one time, which is like right now. I would rate it above. I would rate it above both the Army Painter and the Reaper brush, but I would still rate it below the Winsor Newton and the Raphael brush. So I guess that would put it at a rating of like 3.5. 3.5 or 4 out of 5, right? That's how I would rate it. So yeah, overall I like the brush. I think it's a good strong recommend for folks that might be new to painting and don't want to have the don't yet have the ability to use or take care of the really nicer brushes, the nice expensive brushes like a Winsor Newton. That's a crazy pattern there on the side. Kind of cool though. I had absolutely no idea what kind of patterns I'd be doing. So that's cool. I'm really just painting like random patterns at this point. But they look like, they look like deliberate kimono patterns, I think. See? I don't know. When it comes to stuff like this, I don't really think there's a way to screw it up. You just paint it, you just kind of do what looks kind of cool, and you worry about accuracy or whatever after the fact. It's kind of busy, and I'm actually going to make it more busy, which is interesting. The two I have paint great. Good spring back, keeps the point perfectly even when loaded with paint. Only time will tell how they stand up, but so far for the price, they're good. Yeah, like I said, they're. I was pretty happy with mine. My expectations were met. I mean, I wasn't expecting the Winsor Newton type quality out of it, but that said, it does hold a point fairly well. I like that they're big belly brushes, so you can actually do a lot of painting with them before having to go back into the paint. So yeah, so far I would say I'm fairly impressed. I would recommend them to new painters out there that if I was at the hobby store and it's like, okay, well, what type of brush should I get? I'd point them at some of the GW brushes, which is saying a lot. I mean, I've hated their brushes, their other sundries for such a long time that it was kind of a problem. Okay, so there's that. I need to put I'm gonna put a couple little spots here. Whoa, there we go. Okay, now let's do the back. Same thing. So now I'm gonna generically follow the same pattern I did on the front, because that's kind of how they would do it, right? So it was like started with like 3 dots on this side, and then I kind of branched off of those. This type of freehand I could do with the GW brush. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. There you go. So that matches that side. This side, it kind of has a little more like heavier. Hey, what's up, David? Hello from Virginia. What's up? Hello from California. So it's like that. Just approximating. It's not that important that I actually get this right. Okay. And back here, the bottom part of the skirt I can actually kind of make up. So I think what I'll do is I will make it up. I'm going to go like this. And I want to do a little claw like I did on the front, but this one will look a little more like a leaf or a plant. It'll look a little more like a plant, not necessarily a leaf. The good news is, like I said, with kimonos, symmetry is not an issue. Kimonos look a little more ornate when they're not symmetrical. And kimonos have these like cool patterns in them. Okay. Pretty simple, huh? All right. I'm gonna paint in some highlights. This is like the classic style of like not using fancy airbrush tricks and all that stuff that I do these days. This is just regular brush painting. Brush painting 101 stuff. And honestly, I'm just painting this until I feel like stopping. Because at any point from here, you can actually declare your miniature done almost at any point you feel like it. Let's do a little of this orange fire as a highlight for the hair. She reminds me of the Anima Tactics character Kujaku Hime. She does. I loved painting Kujaku Hime too. What a great miniature. It's so much fun painting her. The Takawashi stuff is so cool. So I'm just gonna put that fire highlight up here, top of the hair, little tips. Very fun miniature, this. Very fun miniature. Keep having to highlight that though. Paint doesn't seem to want to stay right there. But yeah, I don't know. Pretty cool. What do you think? I'm gonna... Oh man, can't really get the face to focus in. It's okay. It's okay. Now, if I really want to transition this a little bit more, I can wash the entire kimono, and I may actually end up doing that, but we'll see. Let's just continue with some highlighting while I figure that out, if I'm actually going to do that or not. I'm going to highlight the bamboo on the base. Now, if I apply a very thin wash on the bottom, on the kimono, I can actually get these colors to blend a little bit, and that would be kind of cool. We'll see. We'll see how. We'll see. I have to see how that. I'm definitely not opposed to it. So yeah, this is just, honestly, this is just painting for fun. This miniature is not going to be used for anything. Well, she'll probably, knowing me, I'll throw her in a few games of Relic Knights, and she'll just stand in. I'm not sure who I would use her for. Maybe she'd be a purifier. for my shattered sword, or she could be pit crew for Cersei. There we go. Just doing the highlighting on the bamboo. Pretty cool. Yep. I don't know. I think she looks great, man. She's cool. All right. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will do that. Well, before I even do that, though, I'm gonna shade. Oh shoot! My strong tone, soft tone, dark tone. I'm gonna strong tone the base just to have it all kind of blend together. But for the kimono, I have two options. I can do like a purple wash on it and give it depth that way, or I can do a blue wash on it, give it depth that way. So I've got a couple of ways I can go. Leaning towards purple, probably do a purple wash on it. And I'll thin that wash out quite a bit, just so that, the idea is more about trying to get the colors to transition. And the cool thing about doing it over the freehand too is it's going to tint the freehand, and it'll make the whole thing look a little more subtle overall, and that's kind of cool. So yeah, if you get the whole thing to settle in, I think it'll look great. I'm going to run the strong tone here in between the bamboo as well, just to give me a little shadow. Just let that dry. Yeah, Army Painter Strong Tone is pretty badass when you give up on Agrex Earthshade. Pretty good tone. There we go. All right. So yeah, let's just do that. Let's do a purple wash on it. For no other reason other than I think it might look cool. So we're going to do this Druchii Violet, but I'm going to thin it. Because I want it to be, subtle. And it will help my glaze transitions as well. David loves washes. I also love washes. They're just very useful. So I basically thin this about 1:1. You can see that I spilled some of it off the side there. Not a big deal. I don't need that much. All right, so this will help blend everything back in. I over-thinned it. Hold on. Need a little bit more. That was almost totally transparent. We don't want it totally transparent. We want to give it a tint. Okay, that's a little bit better. Should soften it up. There we go. And softening it up, giving it some shadow. Actually makes that transition look pretty cool. So, not my best job, but it was fun. And I'll use this Takawashi miniature for fun stuff. But that's it. I'm gonna just paint the black basin and call it a night. It's already kind of late, and we're at about 2 hours anyways, and that's about the amount of time I like to spend on a model. I know that sounds weird, but I kind of just say I like to paint a model for 2 hours, and what I get is what I get. Have you heard of adding a drop of detergent to a wash to help the water flow? Yes. Detergent is actually great to add to a wash because detergent is a surfactant. And what a surfactant is going to do is it's going to break up the surface tension and it's going to force the wash flow into the cracks and crevices of the model. That's one of the reasons why people make washes from Pledge Future Floor Wax is because that stuff is loaded with surfactant. Now, you don't want a surfactant that's too basic. So you don't want like laundry detergent or something, borderline caustic like that. The Future Floor Finish is perfect for it because it's got enough soap in it that it's got soap. It's got the good combination of soap and defoamer, basically, and that's what's going to help your wash flow into the crevices. So now I'm just going to paint this up. Great comment, by the way. Now you could also thin a wash with thinning medium, but thinning medium doesn't do that. It's not that big of a difference besides water when you're talking about a wash. When you're talking about a paint, thinning medium is nice because it's going to allow you to keep your color integrity, but thin your model. I mean, thin your paint. You can also just use matte medium. A lot of artists thin with water. Oh shoot, I totally didn't finish the highlights on the back of the bow there. So I'll take care of that too while the black is drying. There you go. Pretty cool. I like the model. She's fun. So we do a little line highlight using the Citadel brush. I might just have to pick up one of the smaller size brushes just to see how well these things handle detail, like true detail painting. Love to see it. Because, man, this could be a pretty good, stand-in for some of my normal brushes. All right. I'll do another. I just did a little highlight of the orange here. Cool. Well, she was fun. It's a fun little model to go start to finish. Yeah? What do you guys think? Yes? Cool. I understand the freehand isn't great, but the overall effect is what I was hoping for. Just, kind of broken up patterns. I could have gone with more geometric shapes, but I wanted more organic shapes on her. That's me being lazy and saying, no, I don't feel like painting straight lines. Need a little more wash on her. I do feel like, yeah, I should have a little more wash. I don't know. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to concentrate. I'm going to concentrate some washes on the bottom of the model because I want to soften her up. So I'm going to and I'm going to put that wash in the crevice there. Yeah, that is way better. Ooh. Model manufacturer. This is a Ninja model. Soda Pop makes this. This is a Takahashi University model. I don't believe this model exists on the Soda Pop store, but I picked it up at the LGS. They were carrying Takahashi University, and I was like, oh, I need to finish my collection of Takahashi University. So this particular model is called Culture Club. I'll show you the card for it. Get the excess artificial brush for the fine detail work. Now, my main question, well, hold on before I do that here. So here's what the model looks like. You can see I actually didn't deviate too far from the studio art. They did more of like a regular floral pattern. I did, you know, kind of weird, almost snowflake pattern. Pretty. Oh, thanks, man. Anyway, so here's the thing. Detail brushes. There's two ways. I have two minds about detail brushes. And I can demonstrate this point using, see if I can find my detail brushes from another manufacturer. See what I got here. Maybe I don't even have those detail brushes anymore. I might have thrown them out. Well, here's an example of a bad detail brush, so I'll show you that. And you guys watching, actually, I know you guys watching are painting vets, so this is probably not going to be news to you. But anyway, a lot of detail brushes, like there's like a Reaper 40, which is a crazy small size. I'll show you even, this is a Winsor Newton 000. All right, so Winsor Newton 000. There's the tip. Here's the, here's like a generic detail brush. There's the tip. Oh, it's in the store. Cool. And this is a Winsor Newton size 0. So this is, technically speaking, this is the largest brush of the three. But now, if you look at the tips, just look at the tips. Which of these brushes would you actually use for fine detail, right? Like, oh, she's told me. Oh, cool. Right, I know what I would use. I would use the biggest one, the size 0, because look at that tip. Look at how sharp that is. That's sharper. That's definitely sharper than the middle brush. And if you look, it's actually just as sharp as the 000 Winsor Newton brush. In fact, most miniature painters hate this series. This is a Series 7 miniature series that they put out. It's not as good. I don't. So I'm going to throw this brush out, because a lot of brushes, you'll go to the shop and it'll say detail brush. And if you look at the tip is the most important thing. You look at the tip and you're like, that's terrible. I would never, ever paint with that brush. So you can throw that one out. But one thing to bear in mind, even though this is a super, super ultra fine tip, detail brush, and this is just what you would call a detail brush. The goal for painting is you want to use the largest brush possible with the best tip possible. And the reason why is because as fine a tip as this one is, your paint is you're gonna have a very small amount of paint in there. There's almost no belly to the brush, and so that paint's gonna dry immediately. So you're gonna dip this in the paint, paint's gonna dry, you're gonna touch it to the model, and you're not gonna transfer any paint. And that gets super, super annoying. It actually makes you paint worse. As opposed to this, where you're going to dip this in the pot, or not in the pot, but in the well here. You're going to get some paint on the brush, and that paint is going to stay wet enough for you to actually paint on the miniature. You can see because I was painting with this tonight. And I never paint with this guy. Like I don't even know why I still have it. I think it's because I bought it a long time ago and learned the hard way that that brush sucks. But that brush does suck. So my question for GW in their line, their fine miniature, their fine detail brush, I want to know two things. One, can it hold a tip as well as a Series 7, which in my experience has been almost nobody. Almost nobody can hold a tip like a Series 7. Two, I want to know if the belly of their brush is actually good enough to hold the paint so that the paint doesn't just dry on the tip. These are important things to me. But anyway, so that's what I would be looking at for those. And I probably will pick one up. I think I will. I was impressed enough with this brush, the medium shade brush by Citadel. I was impressed enough with the tip, impressed enough with the use. It's a good, comfortable brush. And yeah, it did the job. It's a good workhorse brush. I'm going to recommend this to people that I'm teaching how to paint. I think it's a good brush. Was impressed. I'm going to use it a few more times. Make sure that it doesn't just crap out on me. And then I'm going to recommend it. I still say top of the line though, this guy, the Winsor Newton brush is still pound for pound, still the higher quality brush, but it's not that far off. And in this category of brushes, what I call the workhorse series of brushes, where you're going to be doing most of the painting, you're okay. You're fine with this. You don't really need this to keep such a sharp tip, unless you're doing a lot of freehand with your base coating. So I think that's it. I think the final verdict, at least after one night, is a good brush, and I'm going to recommend it. So, and it's leagues better than the Reaper. Here's the Reaper Sable brush, Reaper Pro. Looked like a good enough brush. Look at that tip. It just destroyed. Just bad. It held a tip for about 30 seconds and then it was done. So anyway, I think that's going to be it for this video. It's very late at night. I need to get up tomorrow and I will be watching my son. So I won't be working, but I will be working. If that makes sense to you guys. I'm going to show you this model one more time. So for those of you who might watch this later, you get to see the whole process behind this miniature. It's fun. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.